Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Northwest City Politics. Tonight, we are featured with a very special guest, Senator Ann Rest, and I will go ahead and pass it on to Senator Ann Rest. So thank you for coming in tonight. How do you feel?
Well, thank you, Liz. It's a very important day, as you know, the day after our national election.
Yes.
But I'm most enthusiastic about the local election we had in District 45. We had a special election in the Senate. As you know, I'm a member of the Minnesota State Senate, and I'm a Democrat, and the Democrats had a one-vote majority, and then one of our members decided to run for Congress, Kelly Morrison, and she was successful yesterday as well. We're very proud of her. But Ann Johnson Stewart ran for the Senate seat then that Kelly had vacated, and she had a very decisive victory. She won by more than 2,000 votes.
Wow.
And she will be sworn in as soon as the election is certified. So it's a special election. It won't be, she doesn't have to wait until January 14th when we reconvene for the next biennium. Ann is a civil engineer. She's a builder. She's very interested in transportation, and she has, she was a senator before for 2 years, and now she's returning. So we're delighted that she won. I'm delighted that she won, and that she's going to be returning to the Minnesota Senate. Also, was very pleased with yesterday with the wins by Amy Klobuchar, and of course our other U.S. senator is Tina Smith, and then Kelly Morrison won in the 3rd Congressional District.
Yep.
Betty McCollum won in the 4th, and Ilhan Omar won in the 5th, which is the district that I live in. So some very, very strong women politicians, both at the state level and in Washington. So very happy with that part of the race. Of course, as a Democrat, I was very disappointed in the presidential race. Strong supporter of Kamala Harris and certainly our governor, Tim Walz. I think a great team, but this was not to be their election.
Yes.
So we move on from that and acknowledge that Donald Trump will once again be President of the United States. I'm hoping that people who voted for him will not come to regret that they did so, and that he will display leadership that we can all admire and respect.
Yeah, that's very valuable. So how was voter turnout higher this year compared to previous years?
Voter turnout was, in Minnesota, it's always been great. It's always around one of the highest in the country, 70% or so. I think this year it was slightly lower than it was 2 years ago. But certainly well over 3 million people were voting in all the races, not only for the legislature and for the Minnesota House. Every member in the Minnesota House is up for election.
Yeah.
The Senate has 4-year terms, and so we were not up this year.
Yeah.
But so it's a vigorous year when you have a United States Senator, every member of Congress, every member of the House of Representatives, as well as a lot of local officials. In New Hope, we have a new mayor, as well as in Crystal.
Yes.
John Elder is our new mayor
Yep.
in New Hope, and Julie Deschler is the new mayor of Crystal. So they will be engaging in a new chapter in their public service.
Yes.
So lots of people out voting, lots of people campaigning, lots of lawn signs. Very, very energetic race this year.
Very engaged with what's going on in the voting election this year. So another question I had is, how do you think that the election outcome will shape the political landscape of Minnesota?
Well, the Democrats in the Senate will continue to be the majority. The majority party's duty is to govern, and that is what we will be doing, along with now returning Governor Walz. There is a unusual circumstance in the Minnesota House because we have what looks like is going to be an even number of members of one party with the other. In the House, there are 134 seats. 67 of them look like, I mean, there might be some slight changes maybe in the voting, but I think it's going to hold. It'll be 67 Democrats and 67 Republicans, which means that not one party over in the House is going to be able to direct all the bills and make decisions about the committees, and the Democrats and the Republicans are going to have to work it out, and I'm sure that they will come to some accommodations. It's not the business of the Senate to tell the members of the House how they should organize, but it will be a challenge.
Yes, it will. So speaking of which, how do you plan to engage people about the legislative and changes in priorities?
Well, I'm very active in a number of organizations, the League of Women Voters, Rotary, where I engage within those organizations about public life in our communities. In addition, must be now for 15, maybe even as much as 20 years, I've been holding regular listening sessions at Frankie's Pizza in New Hope on a Saturday mornings for an hour, 2 or 3 times during the interim, sometimes during the session, as often as a couple of times a month, where I invite constituents to come in and just talk with me. I don't have any handouts. When they come in the little side room that we use, I'll ask them, well, who was here first? Okay, what do you want to talk about? And then for the next hour, we go from topic to topic, and I talk as well, but it's not a formal presentation, and we do have those as well. I work with Representative Cedric Frazier and the Representative Mike Freiberg, who won in his race yesterday. He won. He got the most votes of anybody I have seen in a while. He did a really, really nice job, and and he's been working hard in the House now for I think almost now 18 years. I think he became representative over there, and of course Representative Frazier is a more junior member. This is just, I think he's running, this time was just his running for his third term, and work very closely with them on town meetings,
Right.
where we talk about where legislation is going, what committees we serve on, and what we hope to accomplish in legislation that is being brought forward.
So on these Saturday meetings at Frankie's Pizza that you mentioned, are they open to the public or anyone?
Absolutely. They're open to the public. We publicize them on the newsletter that I send out, that my staff sends out. The notice of them is in the newspapers, in the Sun Post, and it's we also put the notices on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
And it all depends how many people come. Sometimes it's as many as 20.
Oh.
More frequently, it's maybe 10 or 11. It's an informal conversation.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I enjoy the most about being a legislator, to talk with people about things that are of interest to them, and what they see going on in the district, what the kinds of, what their hopes are for good legislation, and they also are not shy about telling me how they want me to vote, and sometimes people have very different opposite opinions.
Right.
About how I should vote. So sometimes the conversations can become very, very lively.
That is a good thing. So for listeners or viewers who may be interested in wanting to know when the next meeting is, when is the next meeting?
We haven't. My last listening session was last week, as a matter of fact, a week ago, 10 days ago, and we will be setting up a new schedule for listening sessions once we're back in session.
Okay.
Right now, we will be, since we've just had the election, both in the House and then this one seat that kept us in the majority in the Senate, we are now planning and be working with the governor's office on what the legislative agenda is going to be for the 2025 session. It is the most important thing we'll be doing then is passing our budget. We pass a budget for the state of Minnesota every 2 years, and it lasts for 2 years. So every biennium, the most important job that we do is passing a budget.
Right.
And since I chair the Senate Taxes Committee, that role gives me an opportunity to use tax policy to help Minnesota families. I'm also the Senate President pro tem, which means that when the Senate President who usually presides, his name is Bobby Joe Champion, when he's presenting a bill, he needs someone to be up there presiding on over the Senate. I enjoy doing that very much, and I enjoy that role. I also serve on the Elections Committee and on the Commerce Committee.
Okay, good to know. So now that the legislative is out of session, what are some ways that residents can, continue to be informed when it does resume?
Well, I certainly welcome folks sending me emails. I I don't mind phone calls.
Okay.
I don't mind being stopped in the grocery store or at church.
Yeah.
If someone has an idea they want to share with me or a question to ask, we are out in the public, and I think all of us expect to engage our constituents where they are. And I welcome them to the Capitol too. I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, hosted a group of 12 people from a senior community to a tour of the Capitol, and then lunch in my office suite. So
that's nice.
I really like to welcome visitors to the Capitol as well.
So if someone wanted a tour in the Capitol, should they just email you or message you?
Sure, they can.
Okay.
They can certainly do that, or call my office. I think you're going to have be able to put my office phone number out.
Yep, I believe
and
so.
Have and talk to my my staff person, who my legislative assistant, in particular, and/or my committee administrator.
Yeah.
To say that you're interested in coming and touring the Capitol, and like to be there on a day that I'm there working as well.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I know the Capitol does a very good job of inviting the public to kind of just come in and see how things are done, whether it's in session, watching bills get passed, and it's a cool experience. So kind of moving into the Minnesota Senate and House of Control, did the outcome of the election result in a shift of control in the Minnesota House or Senate?
Well, not at all in the Senate, of course.
Yeah.
We, as I said, we had a special election. Our leadership remains the same. Our committees remain the same. In the House, since it is the membership now is evenly split between the Republicans and the Democrats, it will be up to them to decide how they're going to move forward. And I really don't have any comment about how they're going to do it. I'm just hoping that they'll be successful.
Right. That's what we're all hoping for. So kind of just another question about what do you see as the biggest changes that we can expect to see in this new chapter of a new president, and with the legislative season kind of coming up next year?
Well, I'm not. I think we'll have to wait and see about how the new administration at the national level is going to function with regarding the states. But we have steady leadership in Governor Walz, and he's been keeping his day job even as he was campaigning. He's a great guy to work for and with, and will be certainly following his lead in a number of things, particularly regarding the budget. One of the big issues that we will be facing, and I'm expecting a lot of discussion about, is the lack of affordable housing. And we have, I'm sure we're going to have any number, and we'll be using the tax code to help in that regard as well, but we'll have any number of proposals to provide incentives and to provide programs for folks like first-time home buyers and so forth, that we can get behind on a bipartisan basis. We're also going to have challenges in healthcare.
Yes.
Once again, we're going to have challenges in transportation policy. One of the bills that we passed that we absolutely need bipartisan cooperation on is the is the capital investment bill, is the bonding bill, where that particular committee travels all over the state looking at proposals from various communities for that bill. It takes an extraordinary majority to pass the bonding bill, and it can be for as much as $1 billion of projects. A lot of them are concentrated on higher education. There are any number of projects that people can get very enthusiastic about and that mean something in their community. But when the boiler breaks on a building at Mankato State, it doesn't have cheerleaders outside saying, fix the boiler, you know.
Right.
And so we have a responsibility for our higher education system, the university as well as the state universities and the colleges, to be responsible for keeping those buildings in good shape, and when necessary to have new construction. We probably will have a great deal of discussion about moving forward with funding our public schools, education, whether it's at higher education or in the public school system is always a big topic that everybody cares about.
That's true. So kind of how you mentioned that it's very soon to determine what is in session for 2025. Are there any primary goals that the legislative has in session for 2025?
Well, again, I don't think I can emphasize too much that our primary responsibility in the odd years is to pass a budget where we determine what we're going to fund on behalf of the people of Minnesota and our school children, and making sure that we have adequate resources to meet those needs. There'll also probably be some policy bills that are not simply funding the needs of or the departments, the Department of Transportation and building roads and so forth. One that I'm particularly interested in is a program called SAF, S-A-F, and it is a just mind-boggling, transformational technology of providing and growing and providing jet fuel that is not that is going to be plant-based for the most part.
Okay.
And we just got word that a new plant is being proposed in Moorhead that will process and use a perennial, not a perennial plant called camelina that will be made, that will be used to make this jet fuel. The airlines are very excited about it. The development groups are excited about it. All kinds of interested advocates from agriculture, transportation, and certainly we're a major hub for aviation. So our major airlines are interested in it as well, and I'm very pleased that I'm going to be authoring that legislation and working with my colleagues to get it passed.
Yeah, so this is cool. This will be a plant. That you said it's a plant?
Beg pardon?
You said it's a plant?
Well, you can use all kinds of non-fossil fuel ingredients. Mostly, you can use some corn byproducts. You can use this camelina, which is a low water needing plant that the farmers can put on their acres, and then process it in a plant in a facility that then can be taken right down to the airport and used in the airlines, by the airlines.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that is cool. Kind of to conclude, so, many, just talking about PEG funding for small stations, many communities rely on PEG stations like CCX, for example, for local...
I'm sorry, you say again?
Okay. Kind of going into now last topic of funding for PEG stations. Many community members rely on PEG stations like CCX for local information. Do you know if there'll be any support and increased funding for these stations in the next coming year, or still same thing?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure that it will be a topic that will get some discussion.
Yeah, I know that's been an upcoming topic quite recently of small stations needing funding and of whatnot. So. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.